I'm solo, I don't know where to film, so just bear with me for a second. Is this fine? This mega ultra wide lens? Yeah, that should be okay. Today we're looking at the Fujifilm X Half. It is a half-frame camera made by Fuji. It is very light, very small, meant to be carried everywhere. And it's not a typical digital camera, but it is sort of a digital throwback camera designed for modern times. Okay, so I'm currently in LA and I only have a couple of hours with this thing. So let's go through some initial impressions. Hardware and design first. So the very first thing that you'll notice is how light and small this camera is. Usually I do like a little bit more heft to my camera. The X100 is over here and kind of like the materials and just the overall weight to it. Does feel a little bit plasticky. Not too much, but just a little bit. Other than that, you probably heard there are two screens on this. This is the main screen and there's also the sub monitor where you can change your film simulations and film filters. Also, there's this lever, which is super fun, does a lot of cool stuff. And there's also this exposure compensation dial. On the front, also there's a little flash. It's actually an LED light. And in video mode, it turns on into continuous light. It is neat. It's not the most powerful thing in the world, but I think if you're in a dark setting, a dark environment or something like that, it'll come in handy. There's only a couple of buttons, there's very smooth focus ring and so on. We'll get into all of that, but first I want to go through some photos. The lens on this camera is 10.8 millimeters, which is the equivalent to 32 millimeters with the f2.8 aperture. I do wish that lens was a little bit faster, but it is okay. I haven't had an opportunity to do low light photos, but 1-inch sensor with a 2.8 lens, it's probably gonna be a little bit noisy, but it's kind of the vibe with this camera overall. Otherwise, it is a decently sharp lens. And there are many other things on paper that I don't necessarily love about this camera. There's only one focus point. The focusing is a little bit slow and there is some focus breathing as well. There's no electronic viewfinder, but in practice, this camera won me over and I kind of forgot about those limitations. Fuji also made sure to add a bunch of fun little features to keep you entertained and also make this camera operate more like a film camera. So first things first, there's this 2-in-1 mode where you can merge two photos together as one single file. But you can also do that with video, so you can have one photo on one side and a video on another side. There's also a dedicated film mode. Here, the camera doesn't even let you monitor the photos that you're taking. It doesn't let you change film until you've completed your digital roll. It doesn't even let you look back at the photos that you just took. And each time after you take a photo, you have to crank the lever so you can take the next photo, like a film camera would. Unfortunately, the app that is supposed to be the companion app with this camera is not available yet, but all those things get saved onto your SD card and this is what it looks like. What I love about it is that the contact sheet actually tells you which film you're using. So if you zoom in here, you'll see FMA, which is Fujifilm Monochrome Acros. And outside of popular Fujifilm simulations, there are also filters now. There's halation, dynamic tone, mirror, fisheye, selective color. There's plenty of stuff to look at here, and usually I really wouldn't try those things out, but this camera sort of forces you to just play around, explore, experiment with different looks, and they're kind of neat. I like it. But my favorite one is the light leak because it's fully randomized, so you're not entirely sure what you're gonna walk away with after you take a photo. And one thing that you should know, and probably a lot of you will be very upset with this one, it doesn't shoot RAW, it shoots only JPEGs, which means that everything that you decide to do in camera is basically your final decision. And I think that also just sets up the stakes a little bit when you're using this camera, knowing that what you take a photo of and how you take the photo of and which filter you use and which film simulation you use, that is it. That's all you're getting. And I think that's really clever. Okay, and there is a video mode on this camera. I have no idea what this looks like. Probably not that great if I'm being completely honest, but we're in full auto mode. You can't really monitor what you're doing. There's no screen in front or anything like that. So you kind of just like have to trust it. You know, this isn't meant as a video camera. It's just meant for you to grab some clips easily on the go to have something, you know, to show with your friends. The only negatives that I've noticed so far is that it is a little bit slow. When you're swiping across the screen, it seems like it's just taking a step too long. When you're going through the photos, it takes a little bit too long. When you're doing a diptych with a photo and a video, the saving process takes a bit long. When you're in film mode and you want to go to the next photo, you have to make sure that the previous photo is done saving and then you move on. So you take a photo and then you have to wait for this thing to process. Then you can pull. And I feel like that just takes way too long. So it's blinking. And now I can pull. And there's been a couple of times where I would just pull the lever, try to take a next photo, realize that, oh, the previous one didn't save. Gotta give it a beat, turn it up, and do it again. And again, I only had this camera for a couple of hours, but it's been an incredibly fun camera to just use. And I do think that camera companies should be open to just experimenting more. I absolutely love purpose-built cameras and gadgets, and I do think that this is a good example of exactly that. It forces you to think differently about how you take photos, and I think a lot of your creative decisions depend on the hardware and the software that these companies are designing, and I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. But this camera costs $850, and that is pretty pricey. That is a lot of money for what some people just call a toy camera. It's definitely more than that, but I do understand $850 for something like this is a whole lot. And even for someone who had time to play around with this thing and genuinely likes it, I'm having a hard time justifying that price. So you let me know, what do you think? This is actually one of my favorite features. Just pushing the lever in shows you your last photo. Love it.